She walked in late, drenched, expecting to be ignored, or worse. But then the billionaire at the front of the room turned, smiled, and signed her name. The entire class froze. What happened next changed everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The rain had a way of making everything feel heavier. Air, footsteps, thoughts. For Sarah Morgan, 19 and straining beneath the weight of 2 jobs, night classes, and the gnawing fear of eviction notices, it pressed down like a second skin. Her coat, a faded thing rescued from a donation bin, clung damply to her back as she raced across the slick pavement of Westwood College. The campus buzzed with life. Earbuds in, phones out, umbrellas spinning like careless satellites. But Sarah moved through it like a ghost, noticed only when ridiculed. The laughter hit her like a slap, sharp, cruel, and as expected as the morning frost. A pack of students in designer jackets clustered around a maintenance closet, filming a janitor balancing a stack of toilet paper rolls on his head. "Hey, Cinderella, looking for your pumpkin?" one of them called, just loud enough to invite a chorus of snickers. Sarah didn't flinch. She had learned the hard way that acknowledgement was currency, and she couldn't afford to pay. Inside the cafe where she worked afternoons, the air was warm but stale, heavy with the scent of burnt espresso and exhaustion. Her manager, Rick, grunted in approval as she tied her apron. No small talk. No thank you. Sarah preferred it that way. Every shift was a calculation. How many minutes until she could check on her mom? How many tips to cover insulin? How many eye rolls to survive before she could vanish back into the silence of their apartment? When her shift ended, the sky was already bruised purple, the kind of color that signals evening without granting its peace. Sarah stepped into the cold and saw him. He stood like an anchor in the middle of the chaos, an older man, silver-haired, shoulders hunched, holding a white cane and a trembling phone in one hand. His lips moved slightly, but no sound came. His eyes darted, not frightened, but uncertain. Cars surged past in both directions, angry horns slicing the air like blades. Students parted around him as if he were a traffic cone. Sarah didn't hesitate. Her feet moved before her thoughts could. She tapped his shoulder lightly and offered a calm, steady smile. "Do you need help?" she asked, enunciating clearly, pointing across the street. He turned toward her, and for a moment, just a flicker, his expression shifted. Relief, gratitude, a flash of dignity reclaimed. They walked together, her coat extended over his shoulder to keep the rain off his back. When they reached the other side, he typed quickly on his phone. "Thank you. What's your name?" She typed back, "Sarah." He read it, nodded with a soft smile, and disappeared into the crowd as quietly as he had appeared. She stood there a moment longer, unaware that her smallest gesture had already started a chain reaction no one, not even her, could see coming. The sky that morning was colorless, heavy with mist that clung to the skin like regret. Sarah's sneakers, still damp from yesterday, squelched faintly with every hurried step. The world offered no mercy, least of all to girls like her. Her umbrella had broken 2 weeks ago, and she hadn't found time or money to replace it. So she wrapped her hoodie tighter, kept her head down, and sprinted through puddles like they were landmines. By the time she reached Building C, the sleeves of her thrifted sweatshirt were soaked past the elbows, and her laptop was thudding against her back in rhythm with her racing pulse. 10 minutes late. Again. Professor Kinney would not be kind. He never was. Not to her. Sarah opened the classroom door as quietly as possible, but it let out a creak like a warning bell. Every head turned. Mr. Kinney's narrowed eyes locked onto her instantly, his mouth already tightening with disdain. He had once referred to her, while she was within earshot, as the charity girl who drinks too much library coffee. His disdain had never needed explanation. Sarah was everything he seemed to hate, underfunded, unnoticed, unremarkable. But before he could say anything, The man at the podium raised his hand. His gesture was calm, deliberate, and then he signed. "Ah, you must be Sarah Morgan." The silence was palpable. An interpreter beside the guest quickly echoed his words aloud, but it was already too late. The room had shifted. The tension, the judgment. Suddenly it wasn't on Sarah. It hovered somewhere in midair, waiting to find a new target. She froze. Heat flooded her face. Her soaked sleeves clung like shame. She hadn't imagined the man from yesterday, hadn't mistaken a passing stranger for someone more. Mr. Kinney's voice had changed. He stood straighter now, his tone carefully modulated, like someone trying not to offend royalty. "Class, this is Mr. Russell Holt, founder and CEO of Holt Systems, innovator behind the Halos and EchoNet frameworks, both of which revolutionized AI accessibility." Gasps, mutters. One student audibly whispered, "No way." A girl near the front elbowed her friend, who was already pulling out his phone to Google him. Sarah wanted the floor to crack open and swallow her whole. Then Mr. Holt signed again, slower this time, with the kind of precision that comes from years of necessity. "I met Sarah yesterday. She didn't know who I was. She just helped me." It landed with the force of a confession. No drama, no embellishment, just truth, simple and undeniable. And in that instant, the girl who had been invisible became the only thing anyone could see. The internet didn't whisper Sarah's name. It roared it. A grainy clip, 37 seconds long, had upended her life before she even finished her shift. In it, she wasn't wearing makeup, wasn't framed in soft light, wasn't even smiling. She was just shielding an older man from the rain with her coat. No filter, no trending audio. Just an unedited moment of decency, and it detonated across social feeds like wildfire. The caption read, "When kindness meets greatness." At first, Sarah thought it was a joke, but her inbox swelled overnight. Reporters, recruiters, strangers writing paragraphs about inspiration and hope. Her college's social media quietly reshared the clip, taking credit by proximity. Students who'd never glanced her way before suddenly remembered they'd once shared a class with her or borrowed a charger. Some classmates were sweet, others smug. A few accused her of staging it. "Strategic charity," one tweet read, dripping with cynicism. She didn't reply. She had no time for comment wars, not when her mother's medication copay was overdue, not when she was choosing between groceries and rent. And yet, the storm kept growing. 3 days later, an invitation arrived. Holt Systems wanted her at GenesisCon, an elite tech summit in Silicon Valley. Round-trip airfare, hotel, wardrobe, all covered. Sarah stared at the email like it was written in Morse code. She had spent her entire life outside velvet ropes. What did they want with her? Her answer came in a private Zoom call with Mr. Holt himself. He appeared in a quiet study, wearing a dark sweater, the same steady calm in his eyes as when she had first met him. No corporate bravado, no buzzwords. "Why me?" she typed after the interpreter relayed his greeting. He smiled and signed. "Because you reminded me what this industry forgot. Tech exists to help people, and you did that without any platform, any reward." It silenced her. She flew to California in borrowed heels and walked into the gala in a dress she couldn't believe was hers. Crystal chandeliers lit up the ballroom like a constellation of ambitions. The room was a maze of suits and social capital. Yet all eyes turned when Mr. Holt took the stage and said her name. She didn't build an algorithm. She didn't write a single line of code for me. But she changed the direction of our next project. Applause followed, loud, genuine. Not out of pity, not out of novelty, but because, in a world obsessed with disruption, Sarah Morgan had done something quietly radical. She had made compassion go viral. It was strange, returning to a place that once dismissed her. The hallways of Westwood College hadn't changed. Same cracked tiles near the science wing, same ancient vending machines with their half-working buttons. But the way people looked at Sarah had. Once the subject of side eyes and sarcastic whispers, she now walked through campus like a question mark people were trying to solve. The girl they once ignored was suddenly someone they wanted to be seen with. But Sarah hadn't forgotten. Not the names they called her. Not the silence when she sat alone. Not the way Professor Kinney used to skim over her raised hand like her voice was made of air. Now, some of those same people offered seats beside them, smiled with too many teeth, shared posts tagging her in quotes she never said. She didn't reject them. She wasn't cruel, but she was guarded, like a door with a light behind it, slightly ajar, but not enough to step through. Her mission was louder than any apology. With help from Mr. Holt, Sarah launched Silent Steps, a non-profit dedicated to making assistive tech more intuitive, affordable, and human. Not marketable, human. Real-time subtitle glasses, smart traffic beacons that vibrated gently for the visually impaired, AI-driven translators that respected the rhythm of natural signing. It wasn't charity, it was design with dignity. Holt Systems offered funding, lab space, and engineers. Sarah offered vision and conviction. In late evenings, after meetings and lectures and strategy calls, she and Mr. Holt would sit over mugs of tea, laptops closed. That's when the mentorship deepened. He told her about the accident, how a bike ride on a summer morning ended with silence, how the world didn't turn down its volume for him, it just turned its back, how even his colleagues, once tight-knit, began to communicate through assistants and memos, avoiding direct eye contact like deafness was contagious. He didn't rebuild his empire to make noise. He built it to prove silence wasn't absence. It was presence with a different rhythm, and Sarah understood rhythm. She had lived on a beat most people missed. Months later, she stood at the intersection where it all began. Cars rushed by. Students moved like currents, and there, under a gray sky, a girl with a red backpack took the hand of an old man with a cane and gently guided him across. Sarah smiled, not because the world had flipped upside down, but because it had tilted, slightly, toward kindness. Sometimes change doesn't shout. It walks quietly, one silent step at a time.